إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بلغ الرسالة أدى الأمانة نصح الأمة كشف الغمة جاهد في الله حق جهاده وتركنا على المحجة البيضاء ليلها كنهارها لا يزيغ عنها إلا هالك صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سار على نهجه ومقتدى بسنته ودين إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. My dear respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are still continuing our series of lectures entitled Immigration and Integration, Al-Hijrah wal-Indimaj. And we are trying to cover in the series the most important strategic work of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions over the course of 10 years in the Medina. The work in building the Muslim community identity, the work in integrating in da'wah and reform in all aspects of life, such as the moral, social, educational, political, economic, health, environment, etc. And also we'll see how the Prophet ﷺ interacted with all the different groups of the Medina society, Muslims and non-Muslims, while he balanced the preservation of Islamic identity, al-muhafadha ala al-hawiyya al-islamiyya, and citizenship, wal-muwatana. In the previous lectures, we talked about the first project, which was masjid, building the masjid, when the Prophet ﷺ arrived to Medina. The second project was the brotherhood. And also in between, we talked about the data collection, which is one of the unpracticed sunnah that a lot of people, they don't use it. Today, inshallah, we will talk and we'll continue our series by covering the third strategic project that the Prophet ﷺ he did in the Medina. And this project basically, it has a huge contribution in building what I call the economic identity of the Muslim community. Because as I mentioned before, the identity, whether it's for the individual or for the community, it's a compound of multiple dimensions or multiple small identities. So the brotherhood was a direction or was a compound of building the social identity of the Muslim community. And this project today is developing what I call the economic dimension of that identity, the economic identity of the Muslim community. So this project is building the Medina's market and its economy. And because the subject is really big, I will divide it maybe to 3 lectures to cover this one. In the first lecture today, and the next lecture, maybe the next lecture after the exams, because I believe next week you have exams or something, so we will skip it to a further notice to know exactly when to start. So this lecture and the next lecture, we will discuss the Medina's market, how the Prophet ﷺ built the Medina market, and the lessons from that. In the third lecture, inshallah, we will cover more about the Medina's economy in general, how the Prophet ﷺ built the Medina economy over the 10 years in the Medina. So let's start, inshallah, today with the Medina's market. My dear respected brothers and sisters, the basis of building the Medina's market and its economy, it didn't start in the Medina, as a lot of Muslims they think that it started only in the Medina. It started basically at the Mecca stage, بدأت من العهد المكي. What I mean by that the Prophet ﷺ, when he came out of Mecca stage and migrated to the Medina, he came with a great deal of experience and knowledge in trade and economics. And that experience played a significant role in laying down the foundation of the economy in the Medina. And even it reflected on the extraordinary ability of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and even his companions, especially from the Muhajirin, Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, in organizing and managing the economic and the commercial affairs in the Medina. And beside dealing with the financial crisis later that they faced inside the Medina. And let me share with you over here more details about that experience that the Prophet ﷺ he built and he gained in Mecca. First, as you all know, that the Prophet ﷺ he was born in and raised in Mecca, and specifically from a tribe which is Quraysh tribe. And that tribe, it was famous for its solidarity and good management of its financial transaction. Solidarity and good management of its financial transaction. They were a trade, people who are good in trade as a first degree in the whole area. So, and since the childhood of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he worked as a shepherd, and then he engaged in trade and tijara as youth. And he was known, after he engaged in the tijara, in the trade, he was known as the truthful and the honest, as-sadiq al-amin, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in dealing in his trade. Because he was dealing in his trade, because of that, he was known as as-sadiq al-amin, the truthful and honest. And he went in the trade for the first time with his uncle Abu Talib when he was 12 years old in the first trade. And even later, the Prophet ﷺ, he used to have a partner in Mecca. A lot of people, they don't know that. He used to have a partner in his trades in Mecca, and they called him As-Sa'ib ibn Abi Sa'ib al-Makhzumi. As-Sa'ib ibn Abi Sa'ib al-Makhzumi. And after the Prophet ﷺ, he became famous in his honesty and truthfulness. He went in the trade of Khadija, radiallahu anha wa ardaha. Khadija, she was a rich woman, and she had multiple trades. So when she knew about his honesty, she sent him in one of her trades. And he returned, subhanAllah, with unprecedented multiple profits in that trade. And this was the reason of her admiration and her marriage from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ after that. So as you see over here, the Prophet ﷺ was not far from the market, was not far from the market activities, whether before or even after he became a prophet inside Mecca. Even the non-believers in Mecca, they used to mention that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned their invalid question in the Quran when they said in the Quran, مَا لِهَذَا الرَّسُولِ يَأْكُلُ الطَّعَامَ وَيَمْشِي فِي الْأَسْوَاقِ, which means why this messenger used to eat food and walk in the markets. So the Prophet ﷺ, he used to visit the markets a lot. He used to attend all the markets, especially the major ones. The major ones such as the market of Uqaf, Wadi al-Majaz, Wadi al-Najannah. Those three markets were a major one. They used to do them in a yearly basis. So the Prophet ﷺ, he used to attend them. Before the da'wah, he used to attend them to do the trade. After the da'wah, he used to attend them to do the da'wah, after he became a prophet. And there are some important, an important lesson I would like to highlight over here from that portion of the story. That the Prophet ﷺ did not know unemployment, throughout his life. He grew up in work and dedication since his childhood. As I mentioned, he worked in shepherding from his early ages and trade when he became youth. Before becoming a prophet, and even after becoming a prophet, he worked, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, beside being a prophet, which is a major job, he worked in building the mosques, the masajid, digging the trenches, collecting firewoods, and serving his family at home on a daily basis. And he gave us a practical example. He gave us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a practical example of the importance of work and productivity in the Muslim's life, which should be a part of our Muslim identity. This should be imprinted and part of our Muslim identity when we are following the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it is unacceptable. It is unacceptable that some Muslims nowadays, they have the comfort of being unemployed and staying on government welfare without having a serious reason, such as sickness or disabilities. Some people, they use it just to take a benefit from the system, and this is not the attitude of the Muslims. This is not the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Our Muslim identity, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he taught us, and we learn from the Seerah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is work and productivity until death. Even in Islam, there is no such a retirement for 60 years or 70. They keep working till end. If they are not working in their work, but still they are working in da'wah or anything. But the productivity is continuous until death. This is our concept regarding employment and work in Islam, if we want to follow the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Back to Mecca. As you know, Muslims in Mecca period, they did not have the leisure or any type of opportunity to establish any type of economic entity because of the restriction that has been put and exercised from Mecca over the Sahaba or the companions in Mecca. The most that they were able to do in Mecca in that difficult period was to cooperate in providing the minimum level of what I call social solidarity through donations, such as the role of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. One of the main famous companions in Mecca, he used his own money in buying the Muslims slaves and liberating them and taking care of them. So he was using his own money. And as soon as, subhanAllah, Quraysh, they learned that deed and that type of action from Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and some of the wealthy people like Uthman ibn Affan and Abdul Rahman ibn Auf and other people, and Khadija, they started to put economic pressure on Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Then after that, they found that Khadija is doing the same thing. So they put economic pressure also on Khadija. And every wealthy person among the companions, that they spend their money in supporting Islam. That happened in Mecca. So you see the amount of restriction that they have it in Mecca. Not a lot of freedom. And then they escalated, even the people of Mecca, of Quraysh, they escalated that type of economic pressure from being a personal economic pressure to become as an economic sanction, hisar iqtisadi, which Quraysh, they applied it on Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and those all who believed in him from the companions of ajma'in, and add to this even who supported them and supported the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from the non-believers, such his family of Bani Hashim, because of the relationship, they still support him, like his uncle Abu Talib and all his uncles and relatives. So they put what I call an economic sanction on them. And even they gathered them all in an area called Shaykh Abi Talib, which is at the edge of Mecca. And that Shaykh Abi Talib, they were underneath that sanction from 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years. Where Quraysh, they stated in their sanction that nobody is allowed to buy or to sell from them. And by the way, in Mecca, they don't have like plants or they don't have like farming or anything like that because it was a desert. The only source of income or food that they have is through the trade. So just imagine if they stop the sanction, the trade, they sanction everything. Even the water, the water they bring it from there. But the food and all the other stuff, they cannot bring it from, except from the trades. And anybody comes from outside, and the Muslims, they will ask, they will pay him. Abu Jahl, for example, he will come and he will say, I will pay you double. And even they go to the trade before they enter actually Mecca. So they did a huge sanction, an economic sanction on Prophet ﷺ, and from that sanction, the Prophet ﷺ, he lost 2 of his closest supporters. He lost his wife, Khadija, who was like a type of internal support for him, ﷺ, and also his uncle, Abu Talib, who was like an external support of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And he saw that during that sanction, his companions, they ate the 3 leaves during that economic crisis. So as you see from here, he saw the Prophet ﷺ from the economic crisis. Sometimes he saw the Prophet ﷺ from that experience from economic crisis, that sometimes the economic crisis becomes as a life-threatening and even faith-threatening. As he stated ﷺ in the hadith, that one of the signs at the day of judgment, as mentioned in the hadith, أن يصبح الرجل مؤمنا ويمسي كافرا يبيع دينه بعرض من الدنيا. The meaning of the hadith, that the man in the morning, this is one of the signs of the hereafter, that the man in the morning, he will wake up as a believer, and in the evening he becomes an unbeliever. He sells his religion for an offer from the dunya. Because of the pressure of the economic or whatever, he will leave his religion and just to eat. And when the Prophet ﷺ ordered his companions to migrate to the Medina, the Quraysh, even they confiscated all their money and their properties from all the Sahaba, all the companions. So with these poor economic conditions, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and all the immigrants, the Muhajirin, they entered the Medina to begin a new phase of building the Muslim community in a land with various crises and challenges, but at the same time with a high ceiling. The difference between the Medina and Mecca, that Medina, it has a high ceiling of freedom to work and creativity. It has a high ceiling of freedom of work and creativity. And subhanAllah, you can reflect that on our reality over here. Our Islamic countries over there, our religious countries, how much restriction they have in the work, and how much freedom you have over here. And I want to emphasize over here two important lessons on how Prophet ﷺ, his experience in Mecca affected his response and his work in the Medina. And it's important to learn from these lessons. First, the Prophet ﷺ, when he lived the crisis in Mecca, through the economic sanction in Mecca, he saw the danger and the impact that he got, and that makes him alerted to the importance of the economic aspect. And he decided to work hard to make sure that the economic aspect is a strong tool in his hand, otherwise it could be a future weapon to be used against him and his companions in the Medina, like the one that he experienced in Mecca. So that's an important lesson he learned from that type of experience. That the importance of the economic, aspect, to control the economic aspect. The second thing that he learned, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the restriction on the freedoms that he experienced in Mecca, it made him appreciate the importance of space in work, appreciate the importance of the freedom. And as soon as he arrived, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the Medina, he immediately started to work, and he made creative leaps, qafasat al-ba'id, in every field, as if he is racing against time, and taking the full advantage of the high ceiling of freedoms. So this is how he learned that, and he reflected that when he came to a place with what we call a space in work. He didn't carry with him to the Medina the culture of restrictions. This is very, very important. He did not carry with him to the Medina the culture of restrictions that limited his movement and his work that he experienced in Mecca. As many of the dua and of the people, unfortunately, they do today, unconsciously, when they come over here to Canada. They limit their work and they limit their freedom to a great extent because of the restricted culture that they have in their mind. فَيُضَيِّقُونَ وَاسِعًا مِنَ الْعَقْلِ. Rest assured that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask each one of us at the day of judgment about that freedom that we are leisure or having experience over here, and what we have done with it over here in Canada. As you believe and I believe that we have the message of truth. Are we? We have the message of truth. We believe that, right? So if we do not spread the beauty of this message that we have over here, and what it has from the goodness, from morals, from truth, to the people who need it over here in Canada, Muslims and even non-Muslims, then the people of the falsehood, on the other hand, the people of the falsehood message, they will spread their wrong beliefs and their wrong morals instead, because they work day and night, 24/7 in doing that. Where for us, as a people of the truth, we are sleeping. We are doing nothing. We are keeping silent. And we shouldn't be surprised when their thoughts become enacted by laws for us after a while to obey, and their culture becomes a curriculum for our children to learn. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask each one of us, so prepare an answer for that. That's what I learned. That's what the Prophet ﷺ learned from the freedom that he saw in Medina versus the restriction that he saw in Mecca. You know, I came over here to Canada in 1999. And I believe the way that I look at Canada, it's like like an empty paper, you can write anything on it. But if you didn't write the good things on that paper, other people, they have pens and they will write garbage. And they will, after a while, they will fill that paper. And you won't, after a time, you won't have a space even to write anything. So don't think that the freedom that you have, if you don't practice it properly, you will find it will shrink and shrink and shrink. And it will be taken from you. So we need to work hard to spread the good and the good morals and values that we have in our religion to the Muslims and even to the non-Muslims. Most importantly, to the non-Muslims. Right now, they have issues with the values, and they discover how bad the values that they have. They have the same title, equality or justice, but they saw that it's corrupted. It's only for a specific gender or specific race, not for everybody. We need to redefine these values and to put it equally for everybody. When we talk about the freedom or talk about the equality, the justice, all these we need to redefine them. If we did not put our share over here in redefining that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask us about it, because we have the truth and we should speak. My dear respected brothers and sisters, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he came to the Medina, as I mentioned before in the previous lecture, he monitored the social, the economic, and even the political health situation in the Medina, to set priorities, as I mentioned before, in his projects to start with, in building the Muslim community, identity. And I want to remind you that one of the things that he did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from his survey, and he found in Medina, regarding, and it's related to the economic status, regarding the economic status. I mentioned some of the points over there, that it has a relation with the economic status. So I will remind you of these points. Is that the Medina's market, whether gold and weaponry, the best farms, and most of the fertile lands, even the water wells, were all with the Jews. This is one of the things that the Prophet ﷺ, he noticed when he was in Quba and he was doing a survey to see exactly what's happening there. He noticed that. Also, he noticed that most of the 6 markets, there were 6 markets in the Medina, under the Jews' control. Under the Jews' control. Markets such as Safasa, ومزاحة, وبقيع الزبير, وبني الخيل, والنبيط, وبني قينقاع. 6 markets. The biggest one was Bani Qaynuqa. The biggest one from the markets was Bani Qaynuqa. And it's considered the largest market in the Medina, located in the middle of the Medina in Bani Qaynuqa tribe. And Bani Qaynuqa was fortified area. So you need to go through all the buildings and to go inside the fortified area for Bani Qaynuqa to go to inside this market. But it was a big market. It has money exchange shops to exchange the Roman to Persian money, and a lot of gold shops, weapon shops, and other shops. And by the way, Bani Qaynuqa, they were very famous in gold shops. So they were having a lot of shops in Bani Qaynuqa market. Where Bani Nadir, Bani Qurayza, they were very famous in the swords and the weapons. So their market was full of weapons. Bani Nadir, they were famous in planting, in farming. So this is why they have a lot of farms in the Medina. Unfortunately, all the Medina markets that I mentioned over here, the 6 markets, all of them, they were dominated by fraud, cheating, interest, riba, exploitation, استغلال, deception, خداع, monopoly, احتكار, and high tax, and market fees. Some of the companions, so with the companions, the Muhajirin, they came to Mecca, to Medina, they were they were merchants. They were not farmers. So this is their profession as a merchant. So when they arrived to the Medina, in particular, the merchant of them, from al-Muhajirin, such as Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Uthman ibn Affan, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf. This is their job as a merchant. So immediately they began to go to the market to do the trade. That's the time where the Prophet ﷺ was building the masjid. So they were helping the Prophet ﷺ in building the masjid in the first maybe 14 days. After the 14 days and the 12 days of his arrival, he built two masjid. So they were helping them in building the masjid. But during that also they were going to the market to do some business, to gain some money, to live, to survive. So they started to do the trade over there. Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, Uthman ibn Affan, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and others, they began to go to the market to do the trade, as it is the only source of money and economy in Medina that they can deal with. And they entered the market and they began even to do the trade, and they started to achieve some profits, such as Abdul Rahman ibn Auf and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. They were very smart. They started to achieve even profits. Despite of their success, subhanAllah, despite of their success, they felt embarrassed, uncomfortable, because the Islamic principles and morals that they believe in, are entirely different from the principles and the morals that they practice in the market. And they must deal with it in a daily basis. So they are dealing with riba, they are dealing with, they see the people, they are do different type of tricks. So they were managed to handle this, but they didn't find that type of comfort. But still, they managed to get some profits. And therefore, subhanAllah, after the Prophet ﷺ, he finished building the masjid. After, we mentioned the first month, he finished the masjid. Then he went and he started to make a survey and to visit all the markets in the Medina. This is how the leaders work. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he finished building the masjid and established the brotherhood between the companions, he visited these markets, the 6 markets. And he saw more than one market, and he used to look at each market, as mentioned in the hadith, and its dealings inside the market, and he would say, after he looks at the dealings, he would say, لَيْسَ هَذَا لَكُمْ بِسُوءٍ. The meaning of that, this is not your market. It means like it's not compliant with what we believe in. That's the meaning of it. And then he reached the Bani Qaynuqa market, and he said the same thing. لَيْسَ هَذَا لَكُمْ بِسُوءٍ. Okay? So what the Prophet ﷺ did, therefore the Prophet ﷺ, he decided to establish an economic system that runs according to the Islamic Sharia and the Islamic morals and values. This is how he decided to do that. He started by establishing a new market close to Bani Qaynuqa. So Bani Qaynuqa market was there, so he took the corner of one of the corners of Bani Qaynuqa, and he built over there, a large tent. He made a large tent to be as a symbol around the Muslims, around it which the Muslims would gather for buying and selling. So it's just as like a symbol, and the Sahaba, the companions, from Al-Ansar, also the Muhajirin, they started to go to that area, and they started to deal in the proper Islamic deals, which is no interest, no taxes, no fees, and even with cheap prices, with honesty, with everything. So they started to work. Now, what happened in the market of Bani Qaynuqa? A lot of people, they started to move to that area. And within few days, some of the business owners in Bani Qaynuqa market, they felt angry and they felt threatened by that new market, because it would expose what they used to practice from the fraud, from riba, from monopoly, from high fees. Besides, they were afraid of the recession, of the recession and the loss. And this is the expectation if you build any type of, a model like an Islamic bank, for example. You think that they will leave you? No, they will not leave you. They will fight you. Especially the big fives, because you're talking about a bank with interest free. Because you will expose the wrong system that they are having. You won't see the damage or the ugliness of the picture if it's the only picture that you have. Unless you put a beautiful picture beside it. This is where you will start to differentiate between those two. So you need, this is why building a models, it shouldn't be like only if you have an Islamic state. No, that's wrong. Building Islamic models, when you talk about building a bank, Islamic bank, or building Islamic market, political, for example, political party with Islamic values. Now the policy, all the political parties, most of them, they have corrupted values. Their values is what with the votes. We need to create these type of models, which is Islamic models, to let them compare and to see another picture that the people they need to see. And this is what I call a da'wah. This is part of the da'wah. And the people, they enter Islam based on that. From what they see from your actions, your work, and the models on the ground. To show them that you are giving another solutions, which is good for the Muslims and non-Muslims, good for the humanity. So, as I mentioned, Bani Qaynuqa, they felt they are threatened from that. So, Ka'b ibn Ashraf, this is one of their millionaires over there, Ka'b ibn Ashraf, he dared to demolish that tent by cutting its rope. So he came at night, he cut all the ropes of that tent to demolish it. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he came the next morning, he saw the tent was destroyed. And he was really sad. So what did he say? He said, لَأَضْرِبَنَّ لَهُ سُوقًا هُوَ أَبْيَضُ لَهُ مِنْ هَذَا. The reaction of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said, I will build a market which is more disturbed to him than this. So look, the Prophet ﷺ, he was not distracted by Ka'b ibn Ashraf. He didn't say, I will adribanna Ka'b ibn Ashraf. He didn't say, okay, get me a group of companions, okay, and beat Ka'b ibn Ashraf. He still focused on his mission. And this is also important for us. When you do your work, sometimes they will send you people to make it personal and to distract you from your mission. Don't be distracted. The leaders, they are not distracted. So the Prophet ﷺ, he was focusing on the point, which is building the market. So immediately he moved ﷺ to a spacious place, which is close, subhanAllah, from Masjid al-Nabawi, Masjid al-Rasul ﷺ. We mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ, he built a masjid on a land, a big land, for an orphan people. So beside that land, there was a huge land also beside it, a big area. And if you go around right now to Masjid al-Nabawi, if you visit that in Umrah, there is one of the famous doors, they call it Bab al-Salam. From that door, if you go out, in the 90s, actually it stayed over there to the 90s. The Prophet ﷺ, he went from Bab al-Salam, that door, and he made a long line in his foot. Like he put his foot and he started to drag his foot and to make a long line. The line that they're talking about is around 100 meter by 500 meter. The width, 100 meter by a 500 meter. And he said, هذه سوقكم لا تتحجروا أي تضيقوها ولا يضرب عليها الخراج. He said, this is your market. Don't keep it spacious. Keep it spacious and don't put any fees on it. لا يضرب عليها بخراج. And it was called at that time the Medina's market. And it was one of the main interests, it was one of the main interests of the Medina. And for the people who are coming actually from Asham, from Mecca, from Al-Yaman, it will be the first place that they will visit and they will see. Because the other market, which is Bani Qaynuqa and the others, one of them is at the center, the other one is in Bani Nadir at the edges of the other areas from the Medina. So that was also a very important location for the market of Medina. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, in establishing this Medina market, and this will, inshallah, I will continue that in the next, inshallah, lecture, how he established the market. And it's important to see how we establish any project. There's like a systematic steps how to establish these projects based on the seerah of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, that we need to make sure that we have it in our projects. Prophet ﷺ, he did not make just a long line in the sand, but he followed that with guidelines for that market. He presented, for example, he presented that in a group of rules and regulations, up to 10 rules and I will share with you these rules in the next lecture. And then he supported these rules with a set of Islamic ethics and values and morals. I call it like a code of conduct. And that's a unique tip actually for our economic identity. And then he activated at the top of that 3 levels of monitoring and supervision to monitor the quality of that system. And at the end, he linked all that with the reward of the hereafter and with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will discover all these things inshallah in the next week, not next week, the next lecture, maybe not the next week inshallah. And we will complete covering the Medina's market and the Medina's economy. But at the end, as we used to do, my dear respected brothers and sisters, as usual, I will conclude the subject of my lecture of the Medina's market and economy with a set of lessons learned, recommendations, and some of the proposed projects that related to our subject over here, in a way to a type of practice in how to project what we hear right now from the story, because it's not a bedtime story. It's a story that we need to reflect on our life. How to reflect that and to project that, what you hear right now. How to project that in our reality over here. And I will share with you maybe one idea. I have multiple ideas here, but I will share that idea just to ignite and initiate the thinking, and I would like to hear from you, your ideas regarding what you learn over here and how to practice and project that in our reality over here. The thing that I would like to share with you, for example, one of the major issues that we have over here as Muslims is the home and car financing. A lot of immigrants comes over here and they want to buy homes rather than paying rents or to buy cars. And unfortunately, they have to go through finance, through the riba, through the banks. And it's considered a significant issue for the Muslim immigrants here in Canada. For decades, we have this issue for decades, not for 1 year or 2 years. The Muslims over here for more than 40 or 40 years. So we have that for decades. And we have always seek the fatwa from every scholar who visited Canada in dealing with the Canadian banks and dealing with the interests. Our approach in that is from individual level, that this is only my problem, as if it's not the problem also for the other Muslims. So it's only my problem. And I go to the Shaykh to give me a fatwa for my problem. This is individualism. This is like Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Uthman and Umar, when they approach and they went to deal, okay, and then Islam, subhanAllah, in Islam there is a flexibility, and we have a fiqh, we call it fiqh al-minorities, the fiqh of al-aqaliyat. Because Islam is flexible, okay, he will give you a fatwa, okay, deal with the riba, because you are still few, you are still powerless. So Islam is practical. But okay, after 1, 2, 3, 10 years, 20 years, you are still minority. You are still powerless. That's a problem. And I think maybe the scholars, they should make the people pay attention to that. When they come and ask them, they should ask them again, what did you do as a group? Why you approach the issue as one? We are an ummah. The ummah is not just to make a group between you and the people in Libya and over there across the sea. No, at least do the smaller portion, which is over here. Combine your power, your abilities, because to solve this issue, you need to put a lot of resources. You need influencers. You need people in economics. You need lawyers. You need media. So you need, and we have these resources, but all these resources are scattered. You need to combine them like the way the Prophet ﷺ, he combined them all and direct all these resources to be more powerful and to be able to create these type of solutions. To do an Islamic bank. So, over here, if the Prophet ﷺ, his approach and his thought like us, as an individual, he would never ever build the Medina's market. He would keep giving a fatwa to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq or Uthman ibn Affan. He will say, we are a minority. I told you that they were minority at that time, 5 to 7%. He will keep giving fatwa, okay, we are a minority, just work with the riba, it's okay. But immediately he was looking at the whole resources. He was not looking at Abu Bakr as an individual. He was looking for all the Sahaba, the 700 Sahaba that he has. And he was calculating all the resources that he has, and based on that, he said, okay, we build a market. We need to do a paradigm shift in the way that we look at the issues. The way that the Prophet ﷺ, he used to look at it as a leader. Don't look at it from individual perspective, but look at it from a group, community, and most importantly, ummah perspective. The minute that we do that paradigm shift, it will move us from the powerless, I call it powerless questions, in seeking a fatwa, in dealing with riba, the interest, to the power questions of creating our own alternative environment. That's the power question, how to create your own environment. Such as how to establish a bank or a financing company that won't deal with the interest. We can approach the solution, for example, by establishing an Islamic bank. Or you can approach it by going to some international Islamic banks and ask them to open a branches. You have a Rajhi, you have Bayt al-Tamween, they can open a branch over here. Or if not, convince some of the Canadian banks that they have over here, like HSBC. They used to have in the UK, they have a window, they call it Amana, inside HSBC, that they are dealing with Islamic regulations. Why we don't do that with them? This is much easier. At least consider it like a step number one, to make it easier for the people. But the point when we approach them, we should approach them as a group, because the bank, he will not listen to me if I approach him by myself. But if I approach him with 100 or 2,000 people, and all of them, they want houses, and also you did your homework by putting the way that to do that type of agreement in Islamic way, but in their ways, in their language, and you have the lawyers, you have everything ready, for sure they will do it, because they will look at it as a business opportunity. And it's a win-win situation. But we need to do that type of approach. Approach as an ummah, not as an individual. Also, as I mentioned, establish financing companies. But some of you, they will say, okay, we have some financial companies. Unfortunately, we need it by Muslim businessmen and investors who facilitate selling the homes in an easy Islamic way and also in a competitive prices. It's a disaster when we do these type of, sometimes when we build it, I hear that some of them, when they build these type of investment companies or the financing companies, in the background they are taking financing from the bank with riba. This is a disaster. We shouldn't do that. Another way, also when they do, and it happened like some of them, they were not able to do the payment, the bank took over, and then the people, they discover, okay, all their homes are hooked up with the banks. And this will reduce the credibility in the system. And most importantly, when they give them actually the price, you will find with these type of investment companies, you will find that the price of the home, it will become like 3 times more than the price of the bank. So what kind of da'wah are we doing here? As if we are pushing the people, go and deal with the bank, don't deal with the Islamic way. When we do these type of dealings, we have to do it for the sake of Allah. And we have to do it with a minimum amount of profit. And to make alternative for the people, because we need that type of merchants who their equation is not only on the dunya. Part of their equation, the huge equation, is in the akhirah. They have equation in the dunya and the akhirah. I'm not telling them not to take a profit in the dunya. Take a profit in the dunya, but make it small. And make the other for the sake of Allah for the rest of the equation. Like Uthman ibn Affan and the other. This is how their equation was. But not to take all, to be greedy, to take all the benefits right now. And then the price will become like 3 times of the price of the bank. You are doing opposite da'wah and telling the people, never ever deal with the Islam and deal with the non-Islamic solution. Deal with the bank. Or another solution, which is creating a credit union. I believe the Muslim community are working right now in building maybe 2 credit unions, as I hear. And inshallah, in the final steps and process. But this is one of the ideas. I would like to hear from you, if we have time. What's the time? How many?
6:25.
6:25? We started at what time?
5:35.
5:35, okay. We still have 5-10 minutes. If you have any questions regarding that, what we talked about, or if you have any, solutions or recommendations or projects.
So I've heard some muftis or like some sheikhs, when they get asked by people like, Sheikh, I want to buy a house, but it's on riba, or I have to take out a loan, or what should I do, right? So these muftis, they say that we shouldn't be focusing on getting houses and stuff in this life, and instead we should focus on, like these are material things. And instead we should focus on, like for example, they use a thing that be a traveler in this world for the akhirah, like we shouldn't have things like houses and stuff like that, and continue, paying rent to avoid these other things. Do you think this is like an individual?
If you can avoid, it's good to avoid it.
No.
But it's still like the Muslims are not all the same. Or the
Yeah,
same.
exactly. So do you think this is like an individual approach where muftis they give this type of answer, or should they?
This is more, but when you give the fatwa, basically, you give it for the community, and a lot of muftiyin, basically, they give that type of options to deal with the type of interest, but with some regulations when you deal with this. But for me, I didn't buy a house until now. But I'm targeting, inshallah, I'm buying a house by building, inshallah, a bank as a solution. So we need to think like that. We need more people to think about we as a group, we as a community, not to think as an individual. This is where we will have another spectrum of solutions, another way to solve our issues. Any questions?
Questions from the live. To spread the message of truth, one needs to have strong aqidah, right? And to follow up with that question, any books of aqidah you recommend?
كتب العقيدة. Okay. The first one, take the aqidah from the Quran, the most important thing. Read the Quran, read the translation of the Quran, the tafsir of the Quran. It has a lot of things regarding the aqidah. Even the way that it will teach you the aqidah, it's attached to morals. Aqidah with morals. Not aqidah, a dry aqidah, the way that we see it in the books. But there are some books, inshallah, the books that I know is in Arabic, but you need the books in English. I'll try to get you these books in the next meeting, inshallah, to get you a list of the books in English to be able to do that. But aqidah, especially take it from the Quran, and also I will mention for you some books, inshallah. So next one, but I will make sure that those are the books in English, not only the Arabic one. Yes.
So what would be the Islamic way of, buying a house? Like their way is getting a mortgage, the interest, it builds up over time. What is the Islamic way of doing it? If there was an Islamic bank, how would they operate?
The Islamic bank is like zero interest, but they will give it to you like they will own it, and then they will sell it for you on installments, but they with a specific amount of time and fixed installment without any interest. This is how they do it. The regulations for Islamic thing. We'll talk about it later also, about the difference between the Islamic economy and the Western and Eastern economy. There are three major differences.
Because with interest, that's how banks, they make their money, right? With
Yeah.
So
Actually, most of the issues of inflation and other stuff is from the interest.
So how would an Islamic
Yeah, and most of the people, I call it like there's this liver, basically. People to people, people to banks, people to countries, and countries to countries. Some countries, they are not even able to pay even their interest. They were not able to pay their interest. So this is a disaster. Especially the slavery part of it. Sisters, have questions? No? Brother, I think.
Maybe I came late, so I maybe missed a little bit, but if we are a majority here in Canada, because we're not creating a bank takes years and years and years and years. Of course, I've seen processes of building a financial institution, and it takes a lot of money and a lot of something like this maybe will take a while.
Yeah, but it will take a while, but it doesn't take a lot of years now. It will take less than that, but you need to do your homework properly and to have it from a multi-dimension, not only to have it from just a group of economics people. No, you need a group of lawyers, you need influencers. This will accelerate. This is why I said you need multiple people. You need media, you need links, because you will have a lot of obstacles. You will have the big five, they will be in front of your face to stop you.
Especially in Canada though, 'cause
Yeah.
it's very strict on like their rules and like they don't like opening new stuff.
I know, but it's not impossible.
America,
You can do it, let's say, through one of the banks, let's say HSBC, open a window at least. This is also another solution. Open a window, they call it Amana window, this is Islamic. And they're willing to do, they're willing to customize for you. But you need to come them as a group of
Wouldn't that
people.
just make them like less profit? Why would they?
No, no. They will get a profit. But it's the way that you put the deal. And they are willing to customize that. At the end, they are taking the same amount of money, but it's adjusted and there are some regulations. And they are willing to sacrifice some of those regulations. And already they did it. They did the Amana in UK. And they are willing to do it any other places. But they need to see those people who are really committed and they said, we want that type of system. And this is how to do it. Also put it for them. And we have some specialist people, they can do it for you. They created those type of systems, the Islamic systems. So you need to do the all homework. So they don't have any obstacles. If they say, okay, it will take us some time to do the system, I have it. If they said, okay, we need some link, okay, I have it. We need some people who have money, we have it. You know, the Muslims, for example, they are from the biggest or the highest, you know, what do you call it, religions that they do donations, or from the society over here, even though that you are only 4.9% in Canada, according to 2022, but still you are from the highest regarding the donations that you do as a Muslim
But you're
community.
saying like step one is to like, we need to get the people involved.
Yes, yes. And to align all the resources. The question?
So like a possible solution, like I used to live in Winnipeg and we had a brother who converted and he was a senior at a bank at an MBA and everything. And then after his conversion, he went abroad and studied Islamic finance, then went back to his company, like the bank he worked for, and did a whole proposal about the Islamic system, and then his bank started a whole Islamic finance department.
That's good. Which bank is that?
This was in Winnipeg, it's a bank called Investors Group.
Yeah. And some of them, as I told you, they are working on the credit union, which is a lower scale from the bank. But what I don't like to go with the investors or investment companies and to go with the banks, because we have some bad maybe experiences with that, and they broke up, they were, what do you call it, Alam Iflas. Bankrupt. Yeah, they're talking about bankrupt or something like that. But for the banks, no. The banks, actually, it's protected from the government. The credit union is protected from the government. So if it falls, it's still, you have a backup. And we need to create that. And I think two of them are working right now on the final stages for the credit union. They have been working on this one for more than 6-7 years. But now they are in final stages, inshallah. We are on the right track, inshallah. Questions? Done? Done? One final question, inshallah.
It's just a comment. I'm from Alberta, so
Alberta.
I know in Alberta they're this year I'm pretty sure they're starting to do a halal mortgage there. They're trying to bring that in. It's
Mashallah.
called halal mortgage, and I think they're working with like scholars and Muslims and all that.
Very good.
Because they want to target because the market of Muslims is huge, right?
Huge, yes.
And of course, if they allow it, then a lot of people they're gonna make a lot of money off of that, yeah.
Yeah.
So something like that should exist here as well.
And I believe if you approach those banks, the big banks, approach them with thousands of people that they are willing to buy houses through Islamic, they will start to raise who's going to give you the best options. But we need to do that. We didn't do that. We didn't have that approach. Our approach is individual approach, minority approach. The first important thing, shift to the Ummah approach. Shift from the minority mindset to the Ummah mindset. And we will have another scope, a big area scope of solutions for our problems. Jazakumullah khair. May Allah reward you for your time and for your listening. And inshallah, our meeting to continue this subject, maybe not next week. They will tell you about when it's coming, next week or the week after, or the week after. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك. العصر ان الانسان لفي خسر الا الذين امنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم ورحمه الله.
Next time.